And welcome. How you doing today, AJ? Epic. Well, it's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to have you on the show today, folks. Just to get into it real quick, AJ is a wonderful guy. I looked at his name and was pronouncing it Ajay in my head the entire time. And if you know from Horace, if you watched Horace Reese's episode, you'll know that sometimes I struggle with even common names. So AJ has kindly told me I could either call him AJ or Ajay. So maybe we should have a little counter. If I had enough time, I'd come up with a little counter with just little ups and downs to see how many times I pronounce it each way. But let's see, the over under will be 3 on that, and you guys can all decide what you want to do in the background. So AJ, out of respect for your time and because I know that you're more important than I am, but I always like to have fun, we're going to get right into it. As we always do here on Expert Showcase, we talk to our guests about their hero's journey. The hero's journey, which is where they came from, what that turning point was, and what the aftermath was. Before we get into each of those particular segments, can you give me a quick overview, maybe 60 seconds to a minute, just kind of a quick overview of your journey that led you from where you were before you became the success you are today to when you became the success you are today?
Sure. First thing you want to know, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I'm an entrepreneur, basically in that same sequence that I said. And I have, as an entrepreneur, I have built 2 7-figure businesses that I'm running. Right when I started my journey as an entrepreneur after I was fired from a company. That's the reality, and we can go into all the detail, but I don't want to do that in terms of why. But that was, and even though I had a job offer very quickly after I was fired, my concern at that point was I started to realize that I do not have any control over my destiny in corporation, even if you are quote unquote successful, by the world standard. So I turned on the job offer, and I figured that I want to now have control of my destiny. So that's how my entrepreneurship area started. Now my skill, I've been in the marketing and strategy area in the corporate America before, so it was natural for me to get into that area. And I started actually with doing some consulting for large companies, and then I realized that it was worse than working for a company because now you are doing something from outside, not inside. So I started to target smaller businesses. And very quickly, and this you have to realize this is 2004, so 11 years back, I realized that most of the small businesses really needed help with what I call the whole internet strategy and execution, because internet was already becoming important for businesses. And surprisingly, many small businesses I talked to wouldn't even think that they needed a website, forget about the strategy and marketing. So that was the beginning. And then for whatever reason, I ran into quite a few entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs like me, who wanted to select a web-based business. So since I saw a need for web, and candidly, still my design and my style is still corporate, so I quickly built a small team to support, because I'm not a programmer, for example. So I got a programmer, I built a small team, and I started helping businesses with their internet needs. Then I ran into, literally 2-3 months into it, several entrepreneurs who wanted to come and they create a web-based business. And so I knew how to create the website, but honestly, web-based business, of course, there's a common sense aspect of it, but I had not done it. So that was the reason where I started this another business that I own. I own 2 7-figure businesses. One is, of course, the digital marketing agency, GMR Web Team. But during this initial phase of consulting, I realized that there was a need for the transcription. Actually, I thought for marketing. No, it turned out that it was much bigger need. But the problem was there was no simple method. And again, 11 years back, I'm talking about where you can have your voice that you have recorded getting transcribed. And I knew that because I did that. I had a recording and I tried to transcribe it. So in the back of my mind, I knew that there was a business. So I figured that before I start, frankly, charging, and many of these are entrepreneurs who didn't have a lot of money, charging them fee for marketing. Website design was one thing, marketing was another animal. So I figured that I better have a test it. And so I wanted to create a guinea pig, and that was the creation of GMR transcription. So I wanted to first test my methods to see if it works before I would charge my client to do the same thing. Now, luckily, you want to say, it was the right place and the right time and everything, and there was a demand for it that I had underestimated at that time. So it just took off. The demand was right from the very beginning. I understood was high, and then of course my marketing methods worked. So all of a sudden I had like 2 companies running instead of 1, and I had to literally hire a team, and I have a team of 3 people who run this 7-figure business, because then I created all the processes and everything to make it simple. So this was the journey, and as I started, you'll be surprised that starting in 2004 with my transcription, I did not really started offering marketing. I used to offer consulting in terms of strategy, because that was I always knew in terms of how your website to the businesses, how their online strategy has to be consistent with their business strategy. But I did not start offering web marketing, until 2009, which was like 5 years. And by then, I had already made this GMR transcription into a 7-figure business. So then I could sit down and create a checklist of what you need to do to market. And then I had started offering marketing also, the internet marketing. And today we are a full digital marketing agency. We have small and medium-sized businesses where you think of it as we are their online marketing department. So we do everything, right from website designing to strategy to marketing to execution to tracking and improving everything we do for our clients. So this is like you said, short version. I guess it was a little bit longer. So
that's okay. Hey, but as the viewers of the show know, I also have a little bit of IT in my background. One of the companies I own, also does websites and all this other stuff. So I'm used to. I can get behind, and I'm used to the. I'll say that the way us IT or the people in and around the IT industry explain things. So it's all good. So let me ask you a few things. I think that was first of all, I think that was a great full in-depth description of your hero's journey, and I commend you on your hero's journey. I mean, I remember back in 2004, I was working for a Fortune 500 company at the time, in information technology, and I remember how much different the time was, and the fact of, even though websites had been around for, and I think I created my first website back in 95, 96, 97, something like that. It was one of those 3 years. Though those years all blur together with me. It's kind of like, the 60s. If you remember them, then you didn't experience them. But anyway, that's a topic for another show. But so yeah, I remember what it was. I remember what it was like back then, and even by 2004, people just had no concept of where everything. Most people did. Some people like yourself did, but most people didn't have a concept of where.
Some people even today don't have that concept. To be very candid.
Yeah, that's but AJ, that's why guys like you and I are in business, because they don't have the concept, and we're the ones that have to show them that, hey, this is what you really can do. And by the way, I'm going to give you AJ's website later on, and you're going to have to wait for a little pop-up to come down at the bottom, because I love what he says on it. But you're going to have to go to the website to find out what that's all about. So let me ask you let's dig a little bit deeper. And since that was such a great big overview, and I really think that the folks got a lot out of it, I'm going to ask some pointed questions about each piece along your journey, because one of the things our viewers love to do is associate with people and associate with people at that time. Like everybody is got this beginning phase. So everybody
Mhm.
is, where they're maybe mildly successful in something. And then everybody has that turning point, that tragic, or maybe not so tragic. For you and I, it was tragic. I mean, it's kind of we fall along the same paths. I was a senior director for a Fortune 500 company, got laid off, went through major, I unfortunately didn't get my golden ticket right away like you did. It's been a challenge to get to the aftermath, but now that we're here and the aftermath is great. So I can really relate to your story. So let me ask you a few questions. Let's focus on the beginning. In the beginning piece, you had said, if I remember correctly, you had said you were working for an IT company, right? Is that what I heard?
Actually, no. I
Oh, okay.
work for different kind of companies.
Oh, okay.
I work for mostly really large corporations. I'll give you in 1 minute. I started with Denny's restaurant that used to be headquartered here as their in their marketing department, and then I went to Mattel Toys, which is again based in Southern California, and I was in the strategy area there. And then I came back to restaurant industry, as a director and VP of, and later VP of strategy, which is based here in, again, Southern California. They own 3 local concepts. It was still a billion-dollar company. And then from there, I moved on to Amoco Oil, which is now owned by BP, but this was like a Fortune 5 company at that time.
Right.
And I was head of their small division there, very, very small, but I was head of the division there. And I was basically brought in there for my restaurant industry.
Okay.
And then I left. I was in the IT company, but it's the company that made the maps that goes into the navigation system
Oh,
in
okay.
Chicago. And I was their head of strategy and research again, because I was trying to. That was a time when people were not convinced that they needed navigation system. So I had to build a case why they needed it, so that car companies will start to offer it. And then after that, I was actually I went to a .com company very briefly. I went there at the end of the bubble, and then the bubble busted literally in 4 or 5 months after there.
Yeah.
And then my last job was the head of in the consumer electronic industry, where I built you can say the first navigation system, the portable navigation system that you see today. That was the very first one where you can just take it out of the box and start using it. And that's where I was fired after, and by the way, not because my product, anything was wrong with that. That was actually selected to be the best electronic product introduced that year, in 2003. So that was my triggering point, because when you create something that you know is absolutely breakthrough product, and I was so confident that it will be so successful, and still, I was fired. There was some disagreement, basically strategic disagreement. Now, of course, I always say it's my fault that I could not explain to other people my value, but it was kind of also, it really pissed me off is the right word.
Yeah.
So when I got the new job offer very quickly from another competitor who wanted to come and he wanted me to head the whole company, I had reached a point where I'm like, you know what, I think I'm done with corporate America. So it was disgust with the situation that started. So I had a varied experience, in which I'm able to bring in actually. I have now clients who are in all sort of industry, and because I already have worked in a different industry, and I know that the marketing fundamentals are same, whatever industry you are in, it has really helped me with all these varied clients that I have.
Oh, that is epic. And there's a couple things I want our viewers to take away from what you had said. First thing, in that beginning phase, I noticed a lot of marketing, which is great. But I also noticed that you were keen and adept at figuring out not only how to sell things, but how to figure out why people needed things. And this is important for our viewers for two reasons. One, it's going to help you when you deal with AJ's company, and when you go through to AJ's website and you start interacting with him, it's going to help you to know that he's got that experience. The second thing is that in your own journey, anybody who's watching this, in your own journey, I shouldn't say anybody, but you, the valued viewer who are watching this, especially the person on the black couch in the back. The point is that when you go through your experiences, whether it's the beginning, the turnaround, or the aftermath, there's pieces of those experiences, no matter how good or bad the time was, that you can take and apply going forward. It's that chain that goes throughout your entire life. It's that common thread that leads us from the time we were born up until the time we die. And there's always one for everybody. And if you believe in reincarnation, it's a time, you figured out what, when you come back, it could be the same thread there. So that's the biggest takeaway from the beginning. Let's take a breath. See, I only breathe once an hour, AJ. It's kind of this. That's why I love having you on as a guest, because I can breathe more than once an hour. Let's focus. Let me pause for a second and let's focus on the turnaround and that that turning point. It's the turning point. So at that turning point moment, the turning point for you was you had developed this incredible thing, which a lot of people probably have or have seen. I know I've had my GPS and that sort of thing. And you did a great job, yet success didn't overcome everything, which for me and for a lot of people, we always think that success is going to overcome and fix everything. And it didn't for you. And even though you were successful and got that offer right away, you said, I'm not, it's not for me. What I think would be really...
all I will say is I felt like I do not control my destiny by working for someone else. That was my biggest thing. If you do create a great product and you can still get fired, then you say, where's the control? I mean, you want to, and that's the best thing about entrepreneurs, right? They want to have control of their life, and that's I was not thinking along those way at that time, but I know that is the end result I can see is that, I was sure that I didn't want to go and work for a company if I could. I mean, of course, if I had to, if I had to feed my kids and family, I would have done it, whatever. But I was, I just wanted to give it a shot, and thank goodness it worked.
Yeah, and so let me ask you a question. This might get a little personal, but I think it's valuable for our audience to hear. In the end, you realized that you had no control and that you wanted that control back. You realized it working for corporate America. And even now, you said, you're not sure exactly that's what you were thinking at the time. What was going through your mind at the time? What thoughts could you share with our audience that would resonate with, not necessarily resonate with them, but that they might be thinking, so that they can realize it's okay to think these thoughts when things are going on, and to realize they have to get through them. Is there anything you could share with our audience on that?
I can do that. You see, think about it that when you have, and whatever is your lifestyle, and no matter what job you have, but when you know that end of 2 weeks, every other Friday, you are going to get a paycheck, and you have your life literally built around that paycheck, right? So when you start thinking about starting something on your own, there's a lot of insecurity that comes into mind, right? You have, how long it will take for you to start making money. I mean, my biggest question I had in my mind is, how soon can I, start to make the same amount of money that I was making as in the corporation working? And in my case, it was a little bit harder also, because I was making a very good salary, right? As the head of the the product. So the insecurity is the first thing. Then obviously, along with that, you have the financial things that you have to worry about. health insurance that I never had. As a senior executive in U.S. corporation, you don't even think about health insurance as a cost, right? Because the company takes care of everything. Yeah. Even simple stuff like health insurance, all these other everyday expenses that we were breezing through as a family. All of a sudden, everything I had to take care of it, right? Either from my savings or start earning that quickly. So there's a big insecurity that I had. I'm assuming that other people have it when you are, going in there. And unfortunately for me, no one even suggested. See, again, all my peers were in corporate America. So I didn't know anyone who was an entrepreneur who could guide me. And I did not know about, these, maybe it was not even there, the podcast that, like yours, where I could learn from someone else. So you are always learning from through trial and errors, right? And when every time you have error, and remember, coming from corporate America and where I was decently successful, I could still get until I would say a couple of years back. Now, for the last 2 years, I don't think I've gotten any. But the recruiters always call and say, hey, there's an opening. And every time you are struggling, it is a very tempting thing to do. And as a matter of fact, one time I was, the company that had fired me, it was sold out. And the people who bought that company just so happened that they knew me through someone else. So they contacted me, and I'm like, they wanted me to come in as an executive vice president. I said, maybe as a CEO, I would consider. And the guy was nice. He said, I cannot hire you as a CEO, but you can put your hat in the ring, and because the board decides that. And I was on a sort of a high when I came back home because it soothes your ego. I mean, let's just be honest. And I told my wife about this, and I said, this is what they are offering, and I'm kind of a little bit excited about it. And that was the time when my business had to start to break even, sort of. And my wife had a very simple question for me: what do you do after 2 years when you're fired? And it dawned, and she was not saying that I will be fired. She said that's the average for CEOs these days. That after every 2 years you get fired. So what do you do after 2 years? And it was a very sobering question. So when I came back, I was like, again, I want to be in control of my life. And she reminded me why I started this thing. So, of course, I went back and I didn't say no, but I asked for some kind of ridiculous amount to come in. And they said, well, there's no way in the world that we can comply with that. Because, in fact, one of the guys who knew me very well said, well, unfortunately, your name is not Steve Jobs, so you're not going to get what you're asking. But yeah, I mean, it is the insecurity. You always are looking back, and and this is where having a support group, having some experts that you can talk to, would be so helpful. I mean, when I look back, to be very honest, sometimes I feel like it's a miracle that I stayed in there, because I will be very candid. There were many times that I was tempted to quit and go back to the job where I knew that, okay, a paycheck is going to be coming and we can live comfortably.
Well, and it's so interesting you talk, and I admit, when I was in corporate America, one of my goals was to be the CEO of a company, and
same here.
It was kind of funny when I left. And I created, I have a couple of companies. One's the C Corp and S Corp. I got all these different, LLCs, everything all over the place. And when I got elected as CEO, it was kind of funny because I hung up the phone. Even though, I own the company, but we had the election. And they're like, yep, you're the CEO. I'm like, okay. I hung up the phone, and I'm divorced now. But I looked at my wife and I went, boy, that's just kind of not what I expected this to feel like. And she's looking at me real strange. And I went, when you have that vision of something and what it's going to be like when you achieve it, and then you achieve it, and it doesn't live up to your expectations, you realize how out of whack some things are. Now, some of our audiences probably might want to be the CEO, might want to create a company, and that's great. If that's on your bucket list, I applaud you. Go for it. Do it. Make it happen. Hopefully, you will feel much more joy, satisfaction, and it'll be much more of an ego trip and a big hi to you than it was to me. It was just kind of like, oh, this is, and it's kind of like, okay, this is what it is. Now I got, boom, it's like check it off, which for me, for people who know me, that's not normal. I mean, normally I'm, either crying or laughing or having a lot of fun with it. So, but anyway, I digress. But I think you provided a lot of valuable information, and the biggest thing that I want everybody to take away from the turning point, and then we're going to talk about the aftermath real quick, is just the fact that while you're struggling, there's going to be times where people and things might pull you in and might make you want to give up. And just like AJ, your wife, asked you the question, what are you going to do in 2 years when they fire you? It's a question everybody has to ask. And I'm going to get real personal with our audience here for a second. A few years ago, my business was struggling, and my now ex-wife came and looked at me and said, you have to shut the business down and go get a real job or I'm leaving you. And while I didn't think of it in those same terms, AJ, I think that's the question my insides asked myself. It's like, and I think that's where I came. It's like, okay, if I do this and I get fired from that job, or if I go back, to being in IT and I get laid off again, what's going to happen then? And it's a stark reality. It's a stark reality, whether it's a relationship or whether it is, a business or an entrepreneur. What's going to happen when? Because like AJ, you were saying, oops, there's one on the Ajay side. Oh, that would be two. So for those of you, I hope people are keeping track out there. We'll have to gamify this with like Blab does with the little hands. But the short version is the fact that you all have to ask yourself that question when it gets dark, because like for CEOs, for example, AJ, when you and I were coming up through the ranks, it was not uncommon for a CEO to be with a company 30, 40 years and just kind of, be there for forever. And it was like the Queen of England, so to speak, right? But anyway, I would say we could really tangent on that. I want to get into the aftermath real quick for at least a minute or two, because you're in that stage right now. And really, I think, let me pause for a second. When it comes to the aftermath, your aftermath really started, it sounds like, when your business was finally breaking even and you had an opportunity to leave and your wife asked you that question. And that was kind of a big question you had to answer during your aftermath period of time. So once you answered that question with, yeah, I'm probably, going to get fired and I'm, going to be very stressful and frustrated, my words, not yours. What happened after that then?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Like, again? Once you, how did you feel? Like, let me ask you a different way. How did you feel, and what things happened after you had to make that decision where you literally had to overprice yourself so that you didn't get the job based on the question from your wife? What feelings did you have after that, and where did things go after you basically said, you know what, yeah, you're right, I'm going to stay and be a business owner and be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, the two things happened. Actually, that was a really good thing. So first, it always helps your ego boost, right? So it can be just not for the ego, but for your confidence. So two things. So first thing, next day I knew that I don't, it reminded me, her question reminded me of the reason I got into entrepreneurship, my own business. I wanted to be in control of my life. So I'm like, okay, again, I don't want to be in front of the board and been there, done that, and I don't want that. So that was and then it, once that helped me figure out and say, okay, this is it. Now I'm going to be totally focused on my business. So there is now the whole, once you say, okay, this path is not for me, then you start to concentrate on the path that you have chosen. So then my focus became, how do I make it, break even? And frankly, like 2 years back, one of my mentors in the corporate world that I have humongous respect for and who has been retired, and I still actually go to him for wisdom, not just for business but also for my personal life. He was forming, with a couple of people. He was, he's of course a very wealthy guy. He was going to buy a corporation, and he contacted me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in joining the team? We are this is a turnaround situation." And I had zero hesitation. I mean, I would have died to work for him in era before, but I had no hesitation whatsoever, saying, as my digital agency, I would love to see what I can help you as an agency. But I'm reached a point where I'm not going to close my company and go and work for someone. So just being able to get that answer, to someone that I would absolutely love to work for, I would have loved to work for, that tells you that, the mindset, how it changes, and it just starts to make you more comfortable that, okay, that's, the chosen path is, that's the way I want to be. And now, actually, my kids who are going to college, and college just teaches you how to become an employee, basically, these days. And I am nudging them, and I'm saying, you should think about it, because, the training that you get in corporation is really overrated. And frankly, now they don't even give you training. At least when I went to corporate world, they were investing money on training their employees to make them more productive. Nowadays, there's nothing like that. So you have to learn on your own anyway. So I am, of course, they're adults, so they can make their own decision. But if I had my choice, I would say just go and be an entrepreneur. I'm so much more now into it.
Yeah,
and of course, I've been doing this for 11 years. You would expect that to be.
Yeah, well, that is epic. And the one thing that if you take nothing else away from what AJ just said, the one thing I want you to take away is this, is that when you know that you're doing what you were meant to do, and you're doing what you're passionate about, when you're presented with an opportunity that you would have died for in the past, and you think about it in a completely different way. As the example, in the past, AJ would have, as AJ said, he would have went to work for this guy. Now, for his friend. Now, when he was approached, it's, okay, how can my business help you? And that's that, we're all tested on a daily basis, regardless of who or what you believe in. There's a higher power. There's everything out there that is testing us on a regular basis. We've all been through it. Sometimes I look up and go, hey, can you turn the page, please? Because the test, this test is really hard. But the good thing about all the tests that happen are the fact that we know that we're solid in our decision, and we know we're going, we know we're going in the right direction. AJ, this is epic. At this point, we're going to take a very, very quick break, and then I'm quite sure everybody wants to hear about how to start a business and break even fast. Today we're talking with Ajay Prasad, an entrepreneur owning 2 7-figure businesses, and just an all-around epic guy. Well, as you come to expect from our guests on Expert Showcase. So give us about 30 seconds, and we'll be right back.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.